I found out my life had been quietly stolen on a Tuesday afternoon while the bay doors at Station 28 rattled in the wind like a snare drum. We were just back from a brush fire off FM 2222. Nothing crazy, a backyard burn that got a little rowdy, and I was halfway through a lukewarm breakfast taco when my phone buzzed. Not a text from Lena. Not a call from dispatch. Before I tell you, do me a favor, hit the subscribe and bell button for a cup of coffee. Let's go. It was a ring cam alert. Motion detected. Front door. I thumbed it open, expecting to see a UPS driver or one of the neighborhood kids trying to sell me overpriced wrapping paper. Instead, I got two dudes in black polo shirts I'd never seen in my life stepping into my living room like they owned it. One was carrying a tape measure. The other had a clipboard. They didn't knock. They punched in a code and walked straight in. I don't remember standing up, but suddenly my chair screeched across the concrete, and Manny, our engineer, looked up with half a donut in his mouth. "You good, Parker?" "Someone's in my house," I said. My voice sounded like it belonged to somebody else. He wiped his hands on his pants and came around to look. We watched them fan out like contractors. Hall, bath, master, kitchen, pointing at my walls, my pictures, the ugly teal chair Lena insisted on buying because it was quirky. A third alert pinged a second later. Side door opened. Then, kitchen camera lost connection. Then living room camera offline. "Kill switch," Manny muttered. "They're blacking you out." Another alert stacked on top of the rest. New document available. Travis County Clerk e-file. That one I almost missed. Buried under the flood. I opened it, thumb sliding without feeling. It was a deed. A quitclaim deed from Cole Parker to Kestrel Equity LLC for $1 and other valuable consideration. Recorded that morning at 9:17 a.m. Notary. Tamara Hill, State of Texas. My signature looked like mine if I'd let a drunk write it with his left foot. I haven't had a cigarette since my academy days, but right then I would have traded a week's pay for one drag. Manny squeezed my shoulder like he was checking a steering box. "Call it in, bro, APD." "Not yet," I said, eyes glued to the fake version of my name on the screen. There was a clock ticking now I couldn't hear, only feel. I've seen enough rooms fill with smoke to recognize what it looks like right before the flash. Quick pit stop. If this kind of slow-burn, true-to-life revenge ride is your jam, hit subscribe, turn on the bell, and stick around. I tell one of these every week, and yeah, this one goes off the rails in ways you won't see coming. All right. Back in. I called my neighbor first, Mrs. Henderson, HOA treasurer, retired school principal, the closest thing the block had to a security system. She picked up on the first ring like she'd been waiting for trouble. "Cole." "Mrs. H, there are strangers in my house. Two guys, black polos. You see anything?" "I see everything," she said, insulted and proud at the same time. Silver Toyota Tacoma. Parked crooked like a drunk. They had a lockbox code. I called the sign number. They said they're doing a walkthrough. Except there isn't a sign. "Not yet." "Don't go over there," I said. "Please." She sniffed. "I know better than to get myself shot, son." Then her voice softened. "Is this about Lena?" "Maybe," I said, which was honest as I could be. Lena and I didn't have the perfect marriage. We had 12 years of late-night shifts and missed holidays and little resentments that calcified like mineral deposits in old pipes. She was a florist when we met, wore chalky green aprons and smelled like soil and eucalyptus, and by the time she shut down the shop during COVID, she'd morphed into an interior consultant. I called it rearranging other people's throw pillows for cash, but she was good at it. People Venmo'd her to tell them where to hang their fake barn doors. Around January, she started spending more time meeting clients and less time in our house. She got cagey with her phone. Turned off read receipts. Switched to Signal. It was all the greatest hits, and I did the greatest hit of every guy who thinks he's too stoic to snoop. I pretended not to notice until pretending wasn't a plan anymore. I called Lena twice. It went to voicemail twice. Third time, straight to that cold robotic lady who might as well say, "She blocked you." I texted, "Where are you?" 2 dots. Then nothing. I called the number on the deed's notary stamp. Tamara Hill, mobile notary, a woman chirped. I didn't know whether to be mad at her or grateful she picked up. I chose polite Texan. Hey, Ms. Hill. This is Cole Parker. You notarized a deed this morning transferring my house to Kestrel Equity. I didn't sign that. Silence. Papers shuffled. Sir, I notarized, hang on. More shuffling. I notarized Alina Jean Parker this morning at a Starbucks on South Lamar. She said her husband was deployed and sent me a signed deed with his signature. She presented driver's licenses for both of you. My palm went cold and slick. How'd she have my license? She had a photocopy. Full color. Looked legit. Did you check the watermark? UV. My voice cracked on the last syllable. I'm a firefighter, not a cop. But I know the weight of paper. I know when something's off. She faltered. I don't have UV. Look, sir, she said it was urgent, and they're a cash buyer, and she had a wedding band. I'm sorry. I charged her extra because it was out of my radius. She seemed nice. I swallowed something sharp. I'm sure she did. I hung up and breathed like I learned on day one. In through the nose, out through the mouth, slow, steady. In the bay, someone dropped a socket set. In the kitchen, coffee overflowed and hissed on the burner. My phone buzzed again. New activity, Bank of Austin. I opened it and watched $48,200 step neatly from our joint savings into a new-to-me routing number that belonged to Kestrel Equity, LLC. I'm going home, I said. Manny took one look at me and didn't argue. Cap, he yelled toward the dorms. Parker's got a family emergency. Captain Ruiz came out from under the stairs, beard still foamed from a rushed shave. You good to drive? I'm good, I said. He searched my face like a building for hotspots and nodded once. Be smart. We've got you covered. It's 12 minutes from the firehouse to my place if lights are green. I made them all green without breaking a single law because that's not how I wanted this day to go sideways. When I turned onto Willowcrest, Mrs. Henderson was on her porch pretending to sweep the same square foot like she was peeking through a theater curtain. The silver Tacoma was still there. A lockbox hung off my front doorknob like a body tag. One of the polo guys, tall, gelled hair, expensive sunglasses, stepped out of my house with my framed UT diploma under his arm. He saw me, hesitated, then plastered on a smile that didn't touch his eyes. Hey man, he said, like we were about to grill in the backyard and not reenact a felony. You must be Cole. We were just doing a preliminary measure. Bree likes to stage quick. Who are you? I said, dead flat. My bad, he said, extending a hand I didn't take. Trent Owens. Kestrel Equity. We're your partners now. My partners, I repeated. In what? In liberation, he said, grinning like he'd said something clever. Taking an underperforming asset off your hands so you can move on. Listen, I know divorces are messy. My wife forged my signature, I said, keeping my voice low enough Mrs. Henderson didn't have to hear. That deed is void. You step another inch into this house, I'm calling APD and the DA, and I'll let them teach you what felony means with PowerPoint. He laughed. Not a real laugh. An actor's laugh. You're a firefighter, right? I Googled you. You're a hero. Everybody loves heroes. You don't want to be the guy who keeps your ex from getting a clean start. I want to be the guy who keeps a crook from rolling the next guy, I said. Lena's car was not in the driveway. Her plant mister still sat by the door. 2 Christmases of us grinning in front of trees were on the wall behind Trent's shoulder. He had my life in his hands and didn't even know which way to hold it. He spread his arms like I'd pulled a gun. We have paperwork. Recorded. We're not here to fight. We're here to make your life easier. He nodded at his partner, who was suddenly very interested in the lockbox app on his phone. We'll come back with an officer present if that's what it takes. No need to get heated. I stepped aside so he could walk past me. He did, but not without leaning in. Hey, Cole. I'm an entrepreneur. You're a public servant. Different lanes. Try to relax and let people who know money handle money. Manny would have called that a chirp. I called it a spark. I didn't call APD. Not yet. I called Aunt Jo. Aunt Jo is not my aunt by blood. She's the 70-year-old widow who used to bring me Kool-Aid when I mowed her yard at 11. Back then, I thought her house smelled like old books and lemon pledge. I didn't know it smelled like a career that made worse men than Trent cry. Joe's a real estate attorney who only kept her shingle up because she liked the fight. She picked up on the third ring and didn't let me finish before she started issuing orders. "Go inside," she said. "Change your Wi-Fi passwords. Disable any smart lock codes you don't recognize. Photograph that lockbox and text me the serial. Send me the deed. Then sit down and write me a blow-by-blow, time-stamped. You will want to storm around and break things. Don't. We will do this by the book because the book is how we win." "Yes, ma'am," I said, because there's something about Joe that makes everyone say yes, ma'am. She filed a lease pendens by lunch that froze any attempt to sell my house under a clouded title. She sent a cease and desist to Kestrel and a very special telegram to their escrow agent that basically said, "Touch this money and you will never sleep again." She looped in a title company she trusted like a battle buddy and made sure the Travis County clerk flagged my parcel for fraud suspected. And she told me not to contact Lena until we were ready. By then, my personal account showed another $4,800 vanishing, this time to a payment processor tagged Ridgeview Home Solutions. I called the bank's fraud line and told my story to a woman who said, "Oh honey, like my mom." She flagged everything, started a recovery, and suggested I file a police report immediately. I did, standing at my kitchen counter while I ate a protein bar with my free hand and watched my cameras stay dark. I'm not a detective. I know roofs and fire behavior and how to breathe through panic. But once you've been inside a house that's turning into a bomb, you learn to look for patterns. Trent didn't feel like an isolated idiot. He felt like a man who'd done this before and gotten away with it. Kestrel had a website with stock photos and a phone number answered by a woman who said her name too slow like she'd picked it a second before she said it. Their mailing address was a UPS store. Their registered agent was a dude in Delaware. And Lena, God, Lena, had been telling me for months that the house stressed her out. The mortgage. The repairs. The constant money talk. "You love this place," she'd say, and then, softly, "I hate it. I thought it was about the roof we needed to replace. The slab crack. The oven that ran hot. I didn't think it was about me. Maybe that was the problem." That night, I slept at the station because being alone in the house I just defended from a stranger with a lockbox felt like standing in the shell of a burnt-out living room leaning on a 2x4. At 2:43 a.m., my phone buzzed. Not Lena. Aunt Joe. "Figure out whether Texas is one-party consent," her text said. "It is." "Good," she replied. "Tomorrow morning you're going to call Kestrel like a seller. I want to hear their pitch with my own ears." By 9 a.m., I was caffeinated and mean and dialing Kestrel from a Google Voice number. The woman with the slow name answered. "Kestrel Equity, this is Bree." "Hey, Bree," I said, tightening my vowels to sound like any other guy in Austin trying to unload a rental. "Saw your sign. Got a complicated situation. Mortgage behind, divorce brewing, need discretion." Bree perked up like a meerkat. "We do complicated. I can get you a cash offer by the end of the day if we like the numbers." "What's the catch?" "No catch," she said. "We buy houses as is, and handle the paperwork so you don't have to. We can close in as little as 7 days. We work with families like yours all the time." "Families like mine." I looked at my hands so I wouldn't throw my phone. "What about the mortgage? Do you pay it off?" "Sometimes," she said, and her voice went slippery. "Sometimes we take over payments, subject to, and keep everything current. It's a win-win. Your credit won't get hit. And if I don't want to be on the hook for a mortgage for a house I don't own anymore?" "That's a separate conversation," she said, all sugar. "When can we come by? Are you on Willowcrest by any chance?" I hung up. "You get it?" Joe asked, speaker still live on my kitchen island. I emailed her the recording. She asked for Manny's contact at APD. She asked if I'd eaten. She always asked if I'd eaten. Then my phone buzzed with a text that knocked the wind out of me harder than any punch. "We need to talk. Come by at 5. I'll be there." I stared at the letters until they stopped dancing. Then I did the thing every person swears they won't do and then does anyway. I scrolled back through 3 months of Lena's messages. The last sweet one was Valentine's Day. After that, logistics. We need eggs. I'll be late. Can you Venmo my sister? The distance had crept in cell by cell until it was a wall. At 5 p.m., I pulled up to my own house like a guest and sat at the curb for a full minute. I could hear my heart in my ears. I wished for a second that I was walking into a fire because at least with fire, the rules make sense. Lena opened the door before I knocked like she'd been standing there listening for tires. Her hair was shorter. She'd cut it without telling me, which was a stupid thing to notice when the real thing to notice was that she didn't look surprised or guilty. She looked tired. "Hey," she said. "Hey," I echoed. We stood in the tiny entryway like strangers in the kind of house they stage for catalog photos. She gestured to the couch. We sat on opposite ends because that's what you do when you want to pretend you're on the same piece of furniture and not on different planets. "I'm sorry," she said, and let it sit there like a paperweight. "I should have told you. I didn't want it to be messy. I thought if I handled it—" "You forged my name," I said. She flinched. "Trent said it was fine. He said it was normal in our situation. That we just needed to get you off title so we could clean up the debt and—" "Our situation," I said, tasting blood. "Which situation is that, Lena? The one where you move some guy into my house while I'm at work? The one where you hire a mobile notary at Starbucks? The one where you drain our savings into a shell company with a bird name?" She crossed her arms like she was cold. "I didn't drain anything. I moved money for closing costs and 48 grand for what?" I said. "Do kestrels eat gold? Do they snack on my retirement? I can make this a one-liner, Lena. Are you in love with him?" She couldn't lie with her face to save her life. It flickered. And then she did that stubborn set of her jaw I used to think was cute. "I'm in love with not being scared," she said finally. "You're gone 24, 48 hours at a time. Fires are getting worse. Every summer I think, this is the one that takes him. You don't sleep. You grind your teeth until it sounds like you're chewing gravel. And then when you are here, your brain is still in a burning building. I wake up alone. I go to sleep alone. You love your job more than you love anything." "That's not true," I said, and even to my own ears it didn't land clean. "Okay," she said softly. "Then maybe you love being needed more than you love me. And I got tired of being the one thing you didn't rush to save." She shook her head. "Trent listened. He made plans. He said we could sell, pay off debt, split what's left, and I could have a life that didn't feel like waiting to hear sirens. I know you think he's a crook. He has connections. He knows how this works. He knows how to steal from first responders," I said. "He knows how to target women who are scared and tired and feel unseen. That's his business model." She stared at the FLIR thermal imaging camera on the coffee table like it had betrayed her. "I didn't want to hurt you. You didn't want to get caught," I said, and there it was, the part of me that had been quiet all day. "But you picked the wrong guy to try to drown. I can hold my breath longer than you can imagine." "I don't want a war," she said, eyes wet. "I want out." "You should have asked," I said. "We could have sold the right way. We could have done it together." She shrugged one shoulder in that ugly half-guilty way that means I know. "Maybe. But then you would have convinced me to stay." She wasn't wrong. I left without yelling. I left without slamming a door or throwing a picture. I left because I had a plan that would either save me or consume me, and the only way to know which was to walk toward it. Joe filed for an emergency temporary restraining order to keep Kestrel off the property and got it. We placed my house on a watch list with a title plant. Bree called twice and left chirpy voicemails in which she used the phrase, "mutual best outcome," like it was a coupon. Trent texted me a selfie from my kitchen, middle finger up, tongue out, captioned, "We're professionals, dude. Get over it." I sent it to Joe, who sent it to Manny, who sent it to the Travis County DA with a cover note that translated to, "Here's a gift." Then I called a PI. Gina Mariano works out of a tiny office above a taco place on South First and looks like the cool aunt you wish you had. Silver hair in a high ponytail, boots, The kind of eyes that make you tell her stuff you didn't plan to say. She poured me burnt coffee and asked me questions like she was laying bricks. Within 48 hours, she had a neat folder with Kestrel's entire ecosystem diagrammed in red lines and arrows like a conspiracy board you'd see on TV, except hers never, ever misses. Kestrel Equity LLC, Manager, Trent Owens, No College, 2 LLCs dissolved for non-payment. Acquisitions, Bree Caldwell, a.k.a. Brienne, Real Estate License suspended 2017, currently unlicensed, Registered Agent, Bullfinch Holdings, Delaware, a shell run by, drumroll, Trent, Partner Entities, Ridgeview Home Solutions, Alamo Metro Installations, Foghorn Ventures, Pattern, Target Divorcing Spouses, Deployed Military, and Elderly, File QCD, Secure Lockbox, List off market at a discount to cash. Buyer, Foghorn, assign contract for fee, collect marketing money, leave original mortgage holder exposed. There were 3 other victims in the last 9 months. Gina had names, addresses, heartbreaks. A teacher. A guy who did HVAC. A widow on disability. Different neighborhoods. Same playbook. This is organized fraud, Gina said casually, like she was ordering lunch. Bank fraud. Wire fraud. Forgery. Theft. We'll need a law enforcement partner who can spell those words in their sleep. APD. I asked. Maybe, she said. But the state AG has a consumer protection division that hates this crap like a personal vendetta. Aunt Joe made the introductions, and suddenly I was sitting across from Investigator DeLuca at the AG's field office, a man who wore a tie like a weapon and had a whiteboard filled with names. We've sniffed around Kestrel before, he said, tapping the board with a capped marker. Couldn't get a witness to hold. They'd take a little payoff and disappear. You're a public servant. You're not disappearing. I'm also not taking a payoff, I said. Good, he said, like we were picking teams. Then let's light them up. The sting wasn't complicated. Good stings rarely are. We let Kestrel think the sale was moving forward. We didn't disabuse them of the notion that I was a stubborn dummy who would eventually fold. Meanwhile, DeLuca looped in an ADA named Valerie Kim, who moved through the courthouse like she'd been born under it. Manny wrangled an APD detective who owed him a favor. Title flagged any attempt to slip a sale through a different plant. And Gina did the kind of quiet work that keeps the whole thing from falling apart, tracking Bree's car, pulling their trash, cloning a lockbox code down to the last beep, watching Trent meet a guy in a Camaro behind a vape shop. There was a showings calendar. There was a photographer who came on a Thursday and pretended not to notice me sitting on the porch, flipping through a manual while my camera recorded every angle of his lens. There was a leak to Foghorn Ventures that made them think they could have a soft open to pre-vet their VIP buyer. There was a text to me from Lena on a Friday night that said, "Are you going to make this worse?" Saturday morning at 10:04, my house hosted more felonies per square foot than it was built to handle. Bree arrived first in a white Lexus with a dog that looked like it had a trust fund. Trent showed up at 10:09 with his sunglasses and his swagger and his cheap cologne. The buyer, a guy with a gym membership and a wallet chain, rolled in at 10:12. DeLuca's team was parked 3 streets over. APD was 2 minutes out, staged at the elementary school. Manny sat in my kitchen pretending to be a cousin who wanted to know what all this subject to BS meant. I slipped out the back and watched through a crack in the fence. Bree fluttered her eyelashes like a cartoon. "We're offering exclusive access because we like to take care of our people," she told Jim Wallet Chain. "It's a wholesale deal. Contract price is $480. Your all-in is $505 with fees. You'll net 80 to 100 in 60 days with a light Reno. Easy money." "What about the seller?" Jim asked lazily. "Messy divorce," Bree said, rolling her eyes at Manny like he was a toddler. "He's difficult. But we have a recorded deed. Title is clean. We handle the back end, you bring cash. There's a lockbox. You get keys at close. We can even help you shift utilities." Manny leaned on the island like it owed him money. "Subject to, right? You keep the old loan in his name and pay it for a while, then stop and disappear with the assignment fee." Trent smirked. "Sounds like you read Reddit. We do it the right way. We make payments." "And when you don't?" Manny asked. "When we don't," Trent said, bored now, "we pivot. Look, man, This is why we don't usually let family in. They get emotional. This is business. You want to share the bed with her after this? Fine. But don't F with my escrow. Manny smiled like a cat who hears the can opener. Cool, cool. At 10:17, my front door opened again. Lena stepped in with a cardboard tray of coffees like she was trying out for a commercial where you forget that the star is the person holding drinks while crimes happen. She saw me through the back glass. Our eyes stuck. I don't know what she thought she was helping. Maybe she thought she was smoothing the edges. Maybe she thought if she kept it nice enough, the horror wouldn't stick to her. She set the coffees down and said something like, "Are we good to go?" That was DeLuca's cue. "Police!" they yelled, all at once, like they practiced. DeLuca's jacket flashed. APD poured in behind him. Valerie Kim followed, hair in a tight bun like armor. Bree froze with her mouth open in a little O. Trent did a whole, "This is unnecessary," officer's routine that played as well as a cover band. Jim Wallet Chain put his hands up like a man who has done that particular move before. Lena backed into the wall, coffee soaking her hands. She wasn't in cuffs. She wasn't the target. She was the reason there were targets, and also not the reason. If you've never watched your life narrow down to left, right, breathe, you can't know how time does tricks. They bagged documents. They bagged lockboxes. They bagged a receipt in Bree's purse for a $3,200 cash withdrawal that matched the timing of the marketing fee from my account. They bagged a notebook where Trent had written down addresses and dollar amounts and a little smiley face next to the name of a woman in Round Rock labeled, "Widow, no kids." By noon, my house was empty again. It had never felt emptier. I made a sandwich I didn't taste and sat on the floor of my living room like a college kid. Manny sat across from me and said nothing. He didn't have to. Lena hovered in the doorway with her hands in her pockets. "I didn't know," she said finally. "You didn't ask," I said. "What happens now?" "I don't know," I said, which was true and a lie. I knew what the legal machine would do. I didn't know what I was going to do with the part of me that had been married to her since the day we said vows under a stupid arch of eucalyptus she made herself because the florist in her couldn't let anyone else arrange leaves. The legal machine did what it does when people like Joe and DeLuca and Valerie crank the handle. Kestrel's accounts froze. Foghorn's line of credit vanished. Bree made bond and ran her mouth to buy herself a lighter charge list. Trent found out that smirking doesn't play well under fluorescent lights. The notary, Tamara, sat in a windowless room and realized in real time that trusting a pretty story can land you on the wrong side of a felony if you don't do your job. She took a deal in exchange for testifying to Lena's part in the sign-and-stamp conveyor belt. Valerie asked me what I wanted more times than I expected. Restitution. Prison. A public apology. For a long time, all I could think was stop it. Make the bleeding stop. Make it so the next me doesn't have to eat a dry sandwich on his own floor while strangers photomap his kitchen. Lena hired a lawyer who lived in Austin but wore Dallas heels and tried to turn my house into a battlefield. Joe lobbed easy grenades back. The divorce paperwork walked into my life with a thud. I signed where my name was spelled right. I didn't ask for things that would take a part of me I didn't want to carry. I asked for the house. I asked for the money to come back. I asked for Lena to put on paper that she knew what she'd done so I didn't have to explain it to myself at 3 a.m. for the rest of my life. She signed. We split furniture like you split a milkshake with 2 straws and the shakes are made of concrete. She kept the weird teal chair. I kept the bed because I needed a place to sleep more than she needed to remind me she'd once loved messes. Somewhere in there, a reporter called. Gina jousted them back into the parking lot. If you're waiting for the part where I became a hero for other people, put a pin in it. That part shows up later and doesn't look like you think. The criminal case screeched and shuffled its way toward plea deals. Bree took a lighter sentence and promised to testify that Trent dreamed up the scheme. Trent pled on wire fraud and forgery and some charges I can't spell without Google. Foghorn imploded. A title rep who'd taken a very questionable vacation with an escrow agent resigned with an apology so tepid it lowered the room temperature. The AG's office sent a list of other victims to Joe, who sent it to me, who sat in my car outside the grocery store and cried until I felt like I'd wrung myself dry. It took 9 months to unwind what they did in 9 days. 9 months is long enough to train yourself to sleep again, and also not long enough at all. On a Friday in October, Valerie called me with sentences shaped like finish lines. "Owens pled today," she said, and I could hear the office in her voice. A door closing, someone laughing down the hall, a printer chewing paper. 8 years. Caldwell got 4 with probation. We seized $132 grand across their accounts. You'll see restitution, but it'll come in like a slow drip. I wish I could promise more. You did plenty, I said. I meant it. The next day, a letter showed up in my mailbox with a Fort Worth stamp. "You don't know me," it began, which is never a great opener unless it ends the way this one did. "But I heard what you did, and you kept my husband from coming home from deployment to an empty lot. Thank you for fighting when you could have just left." I pinned it to the corkboard in the mudroom and left it there when I sold the house. I didn't sell because of the money. I could have kept it and lived with my ghosts. I sold because every time the AC kicked on, I thought it was a bad guy. Every time the front camera pinged, my stomach grabbed my spine. I didn't want to fight those Russians in the winter of my living room anymore. I bought a place north of town on 5 acres that was more metal building than house. They call it a barn-dominium in the listings, like that's supposed to make corrugated steel romantic. It works on me. There's a pond that goes mirror slick at sunrise, and a shop that fits a truck and a boat, and a future I couldn't picture back on Willowcrest. I adopted a mutt with 3 speeds: sleep, guard, and zoom. I started building bookcases for people who thought they wanted to buy the ones you assemble yourself until they saw a corner joint that fit like a handshake. The pension kicked in. The shifts got shorter. The calls got quieter. Sometimes the calls aren't quiet. Sometimes they come at 2 in the morning from a buddy in Hayes County who says, "Got a guy here asking for you, name's Alvarez, says you save his mother-in-law from some foreclosure scam." I drive out in the dark and hold a hand and say the words I've learned to say. It's a system. It's slow. It's not fair. It's still the best thing we have. You're not alone. Lena. I don't know what coda you want for her. There isn't a tidy one. We saw each other in court a handful of times. She wore dull colors and a shape around her eyes I didn't recognize. Her lawyer made the best case money could rent. Joe sliced it apart with "actually, counselor," and "respectfully, that's not supported by statute," until by the end, what was left was a woman who'd chosen bad people in a bad time and had to live with those choices. A month after Trent's sentencing, Lena texted me from a new number. "I heard about the judgment. I'm sorry. Not in the way I used to be sorry to skate. Really sorry. If you ever want to talk, I'm here." I didn't answer. Not because I wanted to hurt her. Because there wasn't a version of that conversation that didn't make both of us bleed again. Is it revenge if what you want most is to never have to think about the person who hurt you? I used to think revenge had to look like a dramatic confrontation on a rainy street with somebody shouting things you can't take back. It doesn't. Sometimes revenge is a bookshelf that doesn't lean. It's the sound of your own boots on your own stairs. It's a letter on a corkboard that reminds you there was a point to all of it other than the flames. The last time I saw Trent was in a courtroom where he wore county orange and that same smirk like it was a dying plant he kept forgetting to water. He stared at me when they read the sentence like he was trying to place me. Maybe he didn't recognize me without the house around me. Maybe he didn't recognize me standing up straight. "Any statement for the record?" the judge asked him, bored. Trent shrugged. "I'm a businessman." People were happy. I didn't put a gun to anyone's head. The judge shook his head. "You put a pen in their hand and told them it wouldn't hurt." On the way out, a reporter stuck a microphone in my face. "What do you say to people who think this kind of creative finance is legitimate?" I wanted to hit him with a hose. "I say if a deal depends on you looking the other way, it's not a deal," I said. "It's theft dressed up in a nice blazer." Aunt Joe retired the day after we finished my case. She said it had nothing to do with me and everything to do with the fact that cake tastes better when you set your fork down before you get full. She threw herself a party where the guest list included 2 judges, a dozen clients who owed her their houses, and the kid who used to mow her lawn and grew up into someone who knew exactly where to put a nail so the board won't split. She hugged me longer than anyone else did and whispered against my ear, "You did good. It's okay to let it be good now." I let it be good. Good felt like mid-afternoon light across a workbench and a dog snoring in a corner. Good felt like not scanning every car in my driveway for a sticker from a wholesaler. Good felt like helping Mrs. Henderson's cousin insulate her attic because she didn't know who else to call. Good felt like babysitting Manny's little girl after his wife went back to teaching. Good felt like the part in a fire when the smoke clears just enough to show you the window, and your body knows where to go without asking. A year and a half later, a stack of letters sits on my workbench addressed to people I'll probably never meet. They're not eloquent. They're not long. They say, here's a list of questions to ask if someone shows up at your door with a sign and a lockbox. Here's a number to call. Here's how to check a notary. Here's how to file a lease pendens. Here's how to breathe. The world is full of guys like Trent. It's also full of men like Manny and women like Joe and Valerie and Gina and Mrs. H who sweep the same square foot of porch because it keeps the block safe. When I feel the old anger twitch, I lay a straight edge on it. I cut it down into something I can use. I don't tell this story because I like reliving it. I tell it because if you ever get a ring alert that says, "Motion detected," and you see a stranger cataloging your life, I want you to know you're not crazy to feel like your skin is a size too small. You are not helpless. The rules exist for a reason. Learn them. Use them. Call everyone you know and some people you don't. Make them listen. Don't get cute. Don't get violent. Get precise. And if anybody tells you you're making a big deal out of nothing, remember, a house doesn't flash over without warning. There's always a moment in the smoke when the edges turn white and the air changes shape. That's your sign. That's when you drop your shoulder, put your head down, and move. One more thing before we cut the lights. If stories like this help you carry your own stuff, hit subscribe. I'm not selling you a lockbox code. I'm giving you matches and teaching you what not to burn. New story next day. I'll leave the porch light on.